In this video, we're going to fix our droplet action inside of Photoshop. All right, so we saw that the action works in the last video. Let's come in here so we can create our droplet. And this is what we're doing. We're using Neo. You can see I've done updates a lot of times. This is the one. Oh, this is the one. Was that the one for Elise? Did I change that? Oh, okay. That's right. So this is the one that I actually want to run and not this one. So let's do that. Let's run this. And sometimes that happens. But hey, that's the benefit of recording this entire process. You get to see sometimes I'll run through something and then realize, oh, I did the wrong one. Okay, so revert back and we're going to run this one. And you can see there's no stops on this. So it should just run automatically. If everything goes as we want, it should just run automatically with no stops. So loading in Luminar. It's taking a bit to load. Maybe there is an issue with this action here. Well, but we knew the other one worked. So I'll give it a couple minutes. I'll pause the video and give it a couple minutes just to see if it's loading slowly, because we do still have in the background, this is still generating previews. So some of my processing power is being used for that. So we'll go ahead. I'll pause the video, let it run for a couple minutes and see if this action is working, or if it is broken, then we'll end up using this one that we know works for the droplet. So I'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay, yeah, it looks like this is frozen now. I'm not sure if it's the action or if it's because it is still processing in the background and my computer just isn't able to handle all those things at the same time. But no worries, we'll continue on, and this is part of the process. So I'm going to kill these, kill Photoshop and Luminar in the task manager, and then let's open Photoshop back up because we want to create our droplet. There we go. Open this up, and then we're going to open up this, just the top file. This one here, so that we can create our droplet from the action. There we go. We'll use this one here, but we'll come in here and automate, create droplets. So we'll use this guy here, suppress all options. We'll save this in the templates folder, and we'll just write over this one here. Okay, maybe this was the one that is using that. You can see the date modified, so it's been a little while. But that one doesn't work anyway, so we'll overwrite that. Stop for errors, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so that's saved. And at the very end of this, one thing that it does is it should automatically save. Maybe that one it does not automatically save. This is the process. This one automatically saves. That's why I did that. I think that was the difference there. So for this, let's do this. This is why I create different versions. So this is going to be version 8 that we've updated. And then what we'll do is we'll run this, and then at the very end, we're going to save it inside the action and close. That way we can, when we run the droplet, it'll save and close. And so basically it'll be set and forget. We can run it and we can just leave it as is. And for this, I'm going to bring this down a lot. A little bit is nice, but that was a little bit too much. There we go. Run that. One thing I've noticed as I've used third-party tools is it should save the last settings that you ran. So like when I made that change in there, so the next time I run it, it should save that. One thing I've noticed though is that sometimes, depending on the version of Photoshop, which is interesting, sometimes it only saves what you record in the action, and sometimes it saves the last setting. And I'm not 100% sure if that's inside of a Photoshop thing or if that's a connection between the plugin and Photoshop. But that seems to be the case sometimes. And this, I'm pretty happy with, honestly, as it is. I don't really need any edits inside of Luminar. I can always pull it back in if I need to later on. But for this stage of it, we're just going to leave it as is. Let it create those layers. Let it process this. And there we go. One thing I do have in Luminar is to do a little bit of skin healing if it does detect that. So it is still doing a little bit. Okay, so now that this is done, we have it. It's selected this. It's all there. Now what we can do is we'll hit record. And then we will save. There we go. Everything's good. Save and close. Oh, actually, it didn't record the save. Let me cancel this. So it just closed. That's not what I want. I want save and close as separate actions. That's something I've learned from experience. So record. Let's save. Where I am saving this. Oops, that's not where I want to save it. I want it in the capture folder. So save. It's fine. We're replacing the one that doesn't have any layers that we've done that to. Save. And now, once this is done saving, we will close. After this is done. Takes a second. These are large files, but that's fine. I like to work. I work as large as I can from the source, and then crop them down at the end, which we'll get to. But that way, if we ever do need larger sizes, you know, if this does end up being printed or something like that, we've already done the edits at that point, and then we can just export to whatever size we want. Instead of if we were to make them smaller and then edit them. If you want a larger file size, well, then you have to go back through the editing process all over again. So we're doing everything at the large size, and then let it go. All right, so I'm gonna pause the video while this finishes saving, and then come back when it's done. All right, so it's done saving. So we have that in the action now, and now we can close out of it, and then that is in the action. But the way that Photoshop's interface works, the action's still recording. So let's come in here. We'll open this back up so that we can get back to the action panel, because it switches to this home screen. So you notice obviously our interface changed. We don't have the actions anymore, but we want to stop that and create our droplet. So we'll just open it right back up. That'll bring the interface back for us so that we can create our droplet. Okay, so you can see it added save, close, and then open again. So we want to stop this and then delete open. So now it saves, closes, and that should be what we need. So we want to recreate our droplet using the new version here, using 8. And that saves there. That is what we had just saved. Yep, okay, overwrite it, that's fine. Okay, so now that we have this, let's test this out. Okay, so I'm gonna close this, and we open up this folder, and we're gonna test it. You can see the size is different because we have those extra layers added in there. So let's just take another one, and let's drag it on there, and it should, okay, that's because we uninstalled the beta, and so there was a link broken there. Let's do this. Let's see if we can. I noticed that there was an update. So let's update Photoshop and see if that reconnects the link to the droplet, because it's having issues. This is an operating system thing with how the software is installed, because I had the beta installed earlier, and that was not working with the action, and now, but it broke that link. So maybe if we update Photoshop without the beta installed, that will reconnect that link between the operating system and Photoshop for the droplets. If this doesn't work, then, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but we can also just run everything inside of Photoshop if we need to. It's just faster with the droplet once we get it set up and working. Okay, so this video is running a little bit. Let me go ahead. I'll just go ahead and pause, and we'll come back in this same video for once this is done updating in Photoshop, because we'll just test this droplet once it's done. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. It just finished. I don't need to pause. Okay, so let's try this again and see if this works, if this communication works. Okay, there we go. So it's opening it up. So it should open, and then it should run the action automatically. And then because we added the save and close, it should save it and close it, which basically means this is hands off. We're not editing anything. I'm just letting it sit and run. But it's going to give us those layers. If we have any sort of changes that we made in those plugins, it would do that. So for these particular shots, it don't need a lot of change in those, but it should just run through everything and automatically do it. Okay, it's not. You can see it. It's not actually applying it. I'm gonna have to click that, which it may be because in the actual action we have those stops put in place, and I didn't turn those off. I was hoping it would suppress or change the drop. When we save the droplet, you remember that option that we checked that was to suppress the openings? I was hoping it would do that, but it didn't. So that's fine. We'll we can turn this off here and then try resaving the droplet again. Now that we got the connection working, this is kind of an iterative process. Then we got the connection working. The next step is just making sure that, here we go, we apply any edits that we've done in here. And then it should run through. It creates our frequency separation, which is again something that I've showed in a different course. For any of these actions, if you want to see those, I'm happy to walk through that in a different tutorial, if that's what you would like to see, of course. Some of these I already have, like creating the frequency separation, digging to that. I've already got a course around that. digs into the math behind frequency separation, how to create it, what benefits there are for it, and everything there. So we're just moving along with this particular tutorial, but again, there can always be ones in the future. All right, so it's saving now, so it's hitting that portion of it, and then it should close this TIFF file. So everything is working except for the stops. Which is fine. But what we'll want to do once this is done, assuming that it actually closes the file, so we can see in our capture folder, we should see it saving it, right? So it's currently working on saving. And then this is 4067. So 4067 should be 1.37 gigs once it's done, because it's adding in those layers, the extra file size, which is a nice way of just being able to track it, as well as the date modified time to be able to see. Here we go. It is saving. Slowly but surely. Saving there, and then once it's done, it should automatically close the file for us. Perfect. Okay, that is exactly what we want. Okay, so now we have this file that's been saved. It's been done. We just need to fix the stops. So suppressing the dialogue didn't work in the droplet, which now that I'm thinking about it makes perfect sense, because it's suppressing any dialogues inside of Photoshop, but the dialogues that we want suppressed are really outside of Photoshop in the plugins. So what we'll do, let's duplicate this here. This will be version 9. Just an iterative thing, so I know. And then we're going to turn off all the stops. So turn off all the dialogues. So it shouldn't stop at all. Now, if we save this droplet, portrait action for release, okay. Overwrite, perfectly fine. Now, let's close out of this, and we should be able to take this file, and this one, hopefully, if this works, there's no other breaks in the action, then it should be completely hands-off. And then once this actually works, it'll walk through the action. And then this process, which seems like, it takes a little bit of time to get set up, but because we have 142 images to work through, or, some shoots, if I've had hundreds and hundreds of images to edit, this walks through them all very quickly as a thing. But okay, great. See, it's processing immediately, right? So it's processing, which means basically we don't have to hit apply. It's automatically adding that little bit of sharpness to it, which is another reason why for these, I add a little bit, but I don't go overboard here, because I can always add more later on, but I'm just adding a little base layer of tweaks, right? So just like what we did with the color correction in Capture Raw, that's a base color correction. Now we're adding a little bit to it on top of that, just a little bit of editing on top of that. That, think of it kind of like, when you're painting, right? You're doing a lot of different edits, a lot of different strokes, a lot of different things to reach the final result. That's the way I like to edit inside of Capture One, Photoshop, using Luminar, you can see I'm using Topaz Labs. I'm using a lot of different things to get to the final result. And each one does a little bit. Photoshop can do the bulk of things once we get to the final editing phase. But that initial step is building some of those layers and some of those edits to get us to a point to where we can do those final edits if we need to. Not every shot needs those final edits. But this should walk through. It should walk through everything without any stops. I wonder if Luminar is freezing because it should have opened by now. We saw it open before when we were just running it. So I wonder if there's an issue with Luminar. We may have to take that out of our sequence. Which is fine. We weren't doing a lot with Luminar anyway. We could always pull that in manually if we need to. Or maybe you saw there was an update for Luminar. Maybe that's an issue that we need to fix. Maybe we need to update Luminar to the latest version. Let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to kill these, and then I will run through. That's fine. We don't want to save this. I'm going to run through an update on Luminar, and then we'll stop this video here, and I'll come back in the next video with an updated version of Luminar, and we'll try this and see if that fixes the issue. If not, we'll figure out what to do next in our action. See you in the next video.